What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York. Good evening or good morning for wherever you're watching this from. But we have an awesome guest. We are here with Alpha Wolf. Thank you so much, Lochie, for being on the show today. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. Half Living Things is a fantastic album. It is such just a fantastic record from start to finish. So was this intended to sort of just be a continuation or sort of like the sequel to A Quiet Place to Die? Or was this meant to sort of like signify like a new beginning for Alpha Wolf?
I honestly don't think we ever put that much thought into like the greater meaning of our records. I honestly, every time we're putting music together, it's like a fight for our life just to get the songs done. So then once we finish them, we're just like, we don't really think about how they are juxtaposed to the last records because we're like, all we need to do is just try to make them better, right? Mm-hmm. So that's probably like in our minds, but also we'll drive ourselves insane if we think about that too much. So I think we try to just really focus on the now and the here and what's in front of us. But sonically, like it sounds like pretty much like it sounds exactly like Quiet Place to Die with some extra flavor. So in that sense, it is a bit of a sequel album, but yeah, we weren't trying to make any sort of declaration for a new era of Alpha Wolf or anything like that. Because I feel like once people hear the back end of the record, it'll be like, this is quintessential Alpha Wolf.
Well, I mean, so you led me perfectly into the next question. Do you feel like the singles that we have heard so far, such as "Sucks to Suck" with featuring Ice-T, or "Whenever You're Ready," or "Bring Back the Noise," are these like good representations of what the whole record is going to sound like, or is that just scratching the surface of what's to come?
I think it's just scratching the surface, but in a way that's like, I've said this on every interview. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but like, probably those songs might sound the most different to like what the rest of Alpha Wolf sounds like. And that's why they're singles, like with a single, you're promoting the album. You're trying to be in as many different places as you possibly can. So you might pick a song that not just your audience will like listen to or have heard before, but maybe someone else who will check it out if they've already written your previous music off. Like, in my mind, Bring Back the Noise is just an Alpha Wolf song through and through, but people did not seem to think so, and people liked that it didn't sound like an Alpha Wolf song. So in my mind, that single was successful because it, people from outside of your original fan base check it out. So that's what the point is with the singles. I think if anything, Sucks to Suck is probably the most different one just because it's heavy, but it's also structured like a more radio-friendly song or like a singy song. But other than that, I feel like everything we've done on the record, we've done before. We're just doing it a little bit better this time.
I don't know what that term radio-friendly sounds like anymore because okay, so radio-friendly, it's like music that you would hear on like Octane, for example, right? But I know people who would listen to Stained and think that that's like the equivalent of like Burzum.
True, yeah, that's true. I think in like structurally radio friendly, like it's palatable to like, intro, verse, bridge, chorus, verse, bridge, big epic end. Like in that sense, there's like, it's palatable. It's not like a progressive, just massive mosh riffs. It goes back and forth between essential sort of thing. But that's it really. Like everything else is very Alpha Wolfy.
When it comes to the sound, whether it be this album or the last album, or with making even a song ever, is it ever based off of a vision or a preconceived idea, or do you kind of like, is it a very roll of the dice songwriting process and you kind of let things fall into place on their own?
You just got to let things fall into place. I think like one of the guys will have like a vision for a song and how it could be like completed and how it's going to get wrapped up. And that song will take the longest time to finish because there's such a clear image in someone's head, it'll never actually get there. So that's the thing, we try not to think about it too hard like that. Everyone will have their own individual ideas and angles, especially if they were like the main songwriter of a song. Everyone writes instrumentals and like actual like tracks for the thing, for the records, but not everybody knows where they want them to go. And so as a vocalist and lyric writer, I'll have to be like, what were you thinking when you wrote this riff sort of thing? Like what emotions were you feeling if I'm not so inspired by it, but I'm trying to like help paint someone else's picture as well, because the guys may not say so, but when they present me an instrumental track and say, go crazy, do whatever you want on it. It's do whatever you want on it, but make sure I like it too. So yeah, having to like balance and actually try to step into people's brains and imagine what they wanted on a record is like kind of tricky, but it's something we also don't like beat ourselves over the head with.
Being, going into a little Alpha Wolf history, when you joined up with the band to make a Quiet Place to Die, were you like looking at the mono record being like, this is how I have to sing, this is what the band is all about, let me sort of like learn how it's done in a track such as My Untold Memoir or Failure or Number 2, or were you kind of like allowed to bring your own mix into Alpha Wolf and kind of like step outside the box of what that was on that first album?
I mean, regardless of all that, I already sort of sounded in the similar vein anyway. I had a band at the time that was like different sounding, but I could make the jump from one band to another pretty seamlessly. Like my big problem was just having to write lyrics. Like I just was never any good with lyrics or anything like that. And I said when I joined, like, I will nail these songs. Like I am fucking like absolutely have no problems with myself vocally performing these songs. Like, but I don't want to have to just jump into a studio and write an album for you guys because that's fucking terrifying, right? And then they were like extremely like fine with it. They were just like, no, we get it. Like we don't expect you to just have all this source. Like we'll work on it together. We'll do as much as we can collaboratively. And then I think like the first record, the Fault EP, was like super like, I didn't have much to do with a lot of the songs on that. It was just a group effort and sort of like finding my feet and balancing this whole, how the fuck do you write a record with 5 other dudes? And then, I don't know, I think it just evolved from there. I started taking over more and more songs as I got confident with songwriting. But that was the scariest part, having to present something to 4 other dudes and being like, this is good, right? And I'll be like, it's not quite there. And I think over the last 5 years, I've just sort of gotten better at like, I feel like songwriting's like a muscle. The more you do it, the better you get at it. You're not just good at it and then you not do it and be okay at it. So yeah, I don't know. It was a task, and I was like super nervous having to like make these dudes happy with these songs. But then it's also like, it's come around very naturally and organically to a point where I feel like I don't have to like I'm not under the pressure from those guys anymore, like it's all collaborative now. Like they're happy to let me do what I want now. Like they trust me with the songs sort of thing, which is sick.
You have many different usages of your voice. The fact that you're able to bring all these different elements into your voice and show many different, just showing the capabilities of really what a metal vocalist is capable of and how much you can do with it. Depending on the usage of your voice, if you're doing more melodic vocals or more aggressive vocals, is it expressing a different side of your personality in a way? Or being that it's all kind of like in the same song, or it's still kind of like Alpha Wolf, it's sort of like expressing a blanket Alpha Wolf sort of message?
I think just the whole blanket thing. Like I never like you said, I never think too hard about how I should use my voice on a particular part. You'll just know, like, even when because Scotty, our guitarist, produces all of our vocals. And if I come into something that should definitely be a lower pitched vocal with a high, like everybody knows it. Like you just immediately know it on the section, because I think the guys, whether they know it or not, like they'll write songs with my voice or my inflections in mind. So if they don't know it and they don't say it or whatever, they do have an idea of what I should do on a certain part. So whenever I do something different, they'll immediately know. I don't know, it's just a vibe with the song. The song just dictates everything. I think once you listen to a song enough, you can sort of feel the life of it, which sounds super cheesy, but like, you know what it needs, you know what it doesn't need, and you don't know how to get it to the end, but think you know what it will look like in the end, you know?
I know you mentioned lyrics are, difficult for you in a way, but like, has maybe a lyrical idea, like a concept, whether it be personal or an external source of inspiration, has that maybe ever helped guide the sound of the music in a way?
No, not so much in a lyrical aspect, because a lot of like the structures and the actual riffs of the songs are done before lyrics are like really sat. Because I that's part of my problem is I have a really hard time writing lyrics to nothing. Like I need a track, I need a sound, I need like a BPM and a tempo and a vibe to write to. And so the lyrics and everything come after the vibe of the song a lot of the time, but like patterns and just cadences and stuff like that, we'll not record drums until the end, just so we can get the drums to match up to the vocals in all of the big chanty parts, the big crowd moments or whatever. Like if you just syncopate vocals and drums, like 9 times out of 10, it just makes the section bang 10 times more. So sometimes we'll try to do that, but it's never too much to do with the actual lyrical content and just more to do with like the phrasing and position of the vocals. Because that's the thing, I'll hear a song and I'll hear the record and be like, okay, I have a picture in my mind of what the lyrics are about.
Depending on what the lyrics are about, does it maybe resonate with you differently, or maybe feel like there is a different and I'm talking for when a song is complete, like you're playing these songs live. Depending if it's more personal or more external, or does that maybe resonate with you, or feel like you channel a different energy into it?
Yeah, 100%. I always feel like I shoot myself in the foot because I'll hear a song and I'll be like, oh, I want to write like this song sounds like it should be about this and like this, but I won't have a goddamn thing to say about it. Like, I'll have no ideas for the actual lyrics, but I know it needs to go in this direction, but I have absolutely no source for it. But so anything else I try, if I actually do have a cool idea in another direction, like it might fit the groove and the tempo and everything, but lyrically I'm just like, it's off. Like this song cannot be about that. It has to be about this. And then I might leave that on the shelf for a while until it comes to me, or let someone else start it. Like, I mean, like if anybody else wants to tackle this song lyrically and start some patterns or a line or whatever, like this is what I'm thinking, go have fun with it, because I'm not looking at it right now, because it's like, that'll make you hate a fucking song. Especially like, it's not, that's what frustrates me about songwriting. It's like, it's not having absolutely no ideas for a song. It's knowing where it should be and then just not knowing how to take it there. So it doesn't always work out. It's good to have that vision, but yeah, it can be extremely frustrating.
Yeah, and nothing could be worse too. I mean, I from what you've told me so far, I don't think you run into this problem, but nothing could be worse than having like the best lyrics ever, and then they're always like one syllable over every arrangement that you have, right?
No, yeah, 100%. That is, see, that's why, like I said before, that'll happen when I do write to nothing. I'll think of a really, really, really cool line just over open space, and then none of the songs the guys have written accommodate for this line or this song or whatever, and I'm like, fuck, like I'll just keep it in the back pocket forever, I guess, until there is a moment for it. Which is cool, you can do that with lyrics, but yeah, you're so right, because that does happen a lot of the time, which is why we will do drums after, so we don't lock ourselves into these cadences.
That's a good idea, and I've asked drummers all the time too. I'm like a broken record. Like I have the usual questions that I set aside for vocalists or drummers or guitar players or whatever, and like for drummers I say, not talking shit, but when you get the song back and there are no drums on it, how off time are your vocals and guitar players?
yeah, literally. They are, drummers are the kings, honestly. Like, musically, they look down on everybody else in the band for those reasons.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why they call them the drum thrones, because they are the fucking kings. Yep.
Yeah.
In order to get that creative inspiration for vocal melodies, for lyrics, or just any creative idea, is inspiration something that you go out looking for? Can you seek out the inspiration, or you just kind of have to let it strike you?
Nah, you definitely have to let it strike you. I'm definitely an advocate of the whole, you can't force anything. You can't force a song. You can't force inspiration. And so I'll force myself in a sense that I'll stop myself from actually creating and just be like, just breathe and watch TV or go and read something or like go and soak in something else. But like, I fuck myself up because I'll do that and mentally I'm just like, draw inspiration from something, like, and then I'll just start picking apart everything I see or everything I hear, trying to like find something in it. And I find it impossible to switch off almost, like, and it's probably not healthy because I'm not feeling inspired. I'm just looking at everything almost mathematically and like pulling it apart and finding what's cool about it. And maybe sometimes I'll strike gold and like get a vibe and write something down in my notes app or something like that. But it's definitely sporadic. And I don't think I could ever force myself into it.
Do you ever feel like the creative vibe, like you want to create something, you have that energy, but just like to quote Eminem, he opens his mouth but the words won't come out?
Yeah, 100%. That's how I feel when like the guys will like bring a song to the table and I'm just like, I just might be doing really well and I'm really happy. I've got nothing, no qualms. I'm just sort of peaceful with everything going on. But I have like a banger track in front of me and I really want to like scream on it and like record something. But yeah, literally nothing to say. Okay. So it's like, it's cool to have that because I always find it exciting having songs in the bank because it's just like, even if I don't have anything now, I know this is just like more potential for more bangers. But yeah, it sucks not like I got friends and I know dudes in bands that can just sit down and write lyrics for a song in one go and the song's done. And I just like, I'm so jealous of that, but I could never.
Is that something do you think maybe that's something you could learn how to do? Maybe as you write,
Probably,
make more and more records? Or
probably, yeah. Like we were saying with the whole like songwriting being more like a muscle, probably. But yeah, I just don't think I have that kind of discipline. I'm far too like hyperactive, like scatterbrain with that sort of thing. Because you're on my phone. Like my inspiration comes so like quickly and so sporadically that I'll be in line at Subway halfway through my thing and then a line will hit me and I'll literally pull out my notes app and write one line down and be like, I'll get to this later. And then sometimes I get to it and it kickstarts a whole bar, a whole paragraph, or even half a song. Sometimes I look at it and cannot fathom what the fuck I was thinking at the time. Like sometimes, because it's such a bad line, sometimes it doesn't even make sense. I just cannot even, and I'm sure it made sense when I wrote it down, but when that inspiration hits, you're almost like, like it's different. It's a different feeling.
Of course. And I have a few more questions for you. One is going to the live show. Is there at all a similar energy that you channel into your live presence as you do when you are songwriting? Is there anything that bridges those two aspects of metal vocalists and Alpha Wolf together, or are they almost two separate things altogether?
No, that's like two separate things, I think. Like my biggest problem with it as a vocalist is doing the same thing in the studio as I do live. Like something happens, it's the adrenaline, it's the vibe, it's the fact that I don't have to nail every take because it's going on record immediately. Like I am like twice the vocalist live that I am in the studio. So like I'll come off tour and be able to pull off all these insane like vocal licks and then I'll get in the studio and it's just like I didn't even know how I did that. I just like there's no vibe, it's dry, it's quiet, like I got these big can headphones on and I'm screaming into like a standing up microphone. It's like I need to bridge that gap somehow and get like just mesh that because I'm completely different live to what I am in the studio. I'm like a nervous wreck in the studio.
Well, I mean, it's scary in there. First off, I mean, as somebody who's watched you live, you're going all fucking into it when you play live. You're just channeling everything. You can't do that in a room full of expensive equipment, and like it's a very static environment.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, like the only people I know who love being in the studio, everybody I've interviewed who's answered the same question, and they say, "Oh, I love being in the studio." One thing in common,
Yeah.
I look at their pedal board, and there's like 90 pedals there, so they're all gearheads. So like,
Of course.
yeah,
Yeah.
so they're the ones who love being in the studio. For the vocalists, you know,
Uh-huh.
you're stranded in that interrogation room to track your vocals, and so I can totally understand that. You have to be the most kinetic one in the whole band. So
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
It's I don't know any vocalist that really loves tracking vocals.
yeah, I mean, I have yet to find one, and I've done thousands of these interviews. So maybe one day. But
There you go, yeah.
and speaking of members too, because every time I ask an artist how was the making of the record, and when they say, "Oh, we all mutually came together," it was such a collective experience, I don't really believe it. You're in a band with 4 to 5 people. You're making a dozen or so songs. There's going to be
It's not happening like
disagreement.
that.
Yeah. But you know what?
Yeah.
I do think it's impossible to keep 2 people, let alone 4 or 5, on the same emotional
Yeah.
headspace. But do you think that those differences can actually help enhance the sound of Alpha Wolf in a way? Because you already have such an eclectic sound. Do you think that maybe all of you, maybe not agreeing on everything or being in your own different worlds, maybe actually is more of an advantage than a disadvantage?
Yeah, 100%. We like, just like any band, we like butt heads writing songs, 100%. And it's always, for me, it's not something I realize until later. Like, it doesn't really get heated, but if we're like stuck on a part because we're like bickering over how it should be, a lot of the time, I'll secede my part. I'll be like, all right, sweet, we'll do it this way. And then like, just to keep it going. And then later on, I'm just like, yeah, you were right. Like, you were definitely right. Like, it's not something you realize until later, because when you're in the studio, you're trying to get all your ideas off and like steer things how you want it, and everybody's trying to get their piece in. And it's not until you have the product in front of you later that you're like, sometimes you're like, nah, actually, we should have gone with my idea because that sucked. And then sometimes you are just like, oh, all right, yeah, I admit, like, your idea was way better. And the more and more that happens, the easier it gets, because people like get used to, like, because it's embarrassing when your idea gets knocked down. Like, no matter how close you are to these guys, like, no one likes to hear like, nah, that sucks. Like, you know, but sometimes you got to be like that, because the more you do that and the more you set your ego to the side, the more you can just be like, all right, you're right, and then come up with another idea. You don't want to get stuck, you don't want to get stumped, and you don't want to get offended and hurt, because then you're just going to like start looking at it the wrong way. Like, best idea is to just be like, all right, maybe you're right, and then just start up a new one. But yeah, it's a constant battle, it's a constant thing, but every single time I have a qualm with a part, I'm usually happy with the other person's idea in the end.
Very good. I'd like to interview your other members, just to make, no, I'm kidding. But,
yeah, that goes. Yeah.
And the final question I wanted to discuss, and I asked every band from your country and in the genre, and that's the Australian metalcore movement. I've interviewed the Amity Affliction. I've interviewed In Heart's Wake. I interviewed Polaris. I've interviewed a lot of them. Parkway Drive is the one kind of I got to check off the list. But I'm just wondering, so my theory is that I've always said that metalcore was Britain's greatest export, because Massachusetts and Australia are the 2 metalcore capitals of the world. I do see South Africa or maybe India being next in line. But I'm just wondering, because, and of course the UK with Bring Me the Horizon, Bullet, and everybody there. But I'm just wondering, is there like a unifying scene? Because I know that Australia, like, all the cities are around the perimeter, so like touring your own country would almost be the equivalent of like touring the entire United States. But I'm just wondering, is there like a community for metalcore just in Australia at the moment or something like that? Like, I'm just wondering if it's a coincidence that all those bands are from the country, or
no, like every band and every dude going to shows in like Australia knows each other. It's definitely entirely incestuous like that. Like, from Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, or whatever, there's dudes I've never met that I've known my entire life, just because they're like Perth showgoers or Sydney showgoers or whatever. The scene is very like wrapped up like that. But at the same time, it's like, same with the bands. Like, everybody in every single big band in Australia knows each other, has met each other, and has definitely done a show in a youth center together. Like, I don't know what it is about Australia. I feel like because there's not that many people here compared to America, but there's such little bands that actually come out and make it out of here compared to America per se. Like, and I think it is because it's like the same space as America, but there's 5 cities to play. Yeah. So if you don't really want to get after it and play shows, you just fucking won't because it's too hard.
I've noticed. I'm sorry, you were saying?
No, you go on.
I was just saying, because North American bands, European bands, Australian bands all have their own unique obstacles. For like European bands, getting the visas. Like I've seen a lot of European bands tour other continents before the United States. Just the whole visa thing is difficult for for Europeans. For North America, the big difficult thing for a lot of North American bands is breaking out of their own hometown scene. Like people get very used to the idea of a local band here, especially in New York City. It seems like Australia, the hardest thing is just sort of escaping, if you will. Yeah, honestly, well, we're so far away from America and Europe. And if you want to take a whole band to either of those countries, it's at least $20,000 out of your pocket. And then everything you spend there is like double the cost because Australia's dollar is like half of America's and half of Europe's. So like you just immediately start eating shit as soon as you get on the ground. So I don't know if Australian bands see that and have just worked their asses off, and that's why other countries are so impressed by Australian bands. But like, it's all perspective because I think American bands, even UK bands, are 10 times cooler than the Australian bands. And that is definitely because I grew up with all of these bands and I've seen them a billion times. But like, I don't know. It's all perspective. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure when a band from America or Europe comes to Australia for the first time, people are way stoked. But I can tell you that when Parkway Drive brought out the Amity Affliction, North Lane, and Make Them Suffer for like the Australian tour, it was like a dream come true. I heard the vocalist of Make Them Suffer. I heard the vocalist of Make Them Suffer being like, none of us ever thought we could get out of here, and we're all here together. Like, it was actually a very heartwarming statement.
Yeah. Well, it was like, that's the thing. The whole marketing for those tours is the fact that every band is Australian. Like, that's just enough to sell tickets. I mean, it's fucking Parkway Drive, but at the same time, it's like every band is Australian. So everyone's just like sick. Like, this is a huge lineup. And it's just like, I saw that and I was just like, I've seen this lineup 100 times. Like, I've been to this show. So yeah, I know it is cool that it has that power, and like while I don't realize it all that time, I am proud to come from this place and to be able to like have made such a mark already from so far away. But it's like, yeah, I don't know, like it's especially in like the AA scene, like I just feel like there's less smaller bands in Australia than everywhere else. Like I can think of like 5 local bands from America I actually listen to, and then like I probably don't listen to any local bands in Australia.
I feel like Australia, it's almost like there's, and I could be wrong, forgive me for assuming, but it almost seems like that there's very little underground there. It's like...
I don't know. It's like there used to be heaps. I don't know. Like I think it's all still there, but I think maybe like there's this bar. Maybe Australia's gotten big-headed from the world telling them they have like the best metalcore scene ever. But like, if you don't just rip immediately out the gate, people are gonna write you off. Like every band, like bands do first shows with like an entire in-ear rig, click tracks and like samples and like no cabs on stage or anything like that. And we don't have cabs now, but we fucking used to. And we only got like an in-ear rig like 2 years ago. Bands are just, I don't know, it's changing now. And I just think if you're not like fully professional, it's hard for people to give a fuck, which is dumb. And I hate that.
Fair enough. But I mean, you know what? I know a lot of local bands though here who would kill to have that type of treatment. So it really depends where you are. But before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time, and most of all, just thank you for a fantastic brand new album. And I can't wait for the rest of the world to hear it. Just anything else with Alpha Wolf that you'd like to promote? I know you got a couple tours lined up. I believe you announced the tour with Amir recently.
Yeah.
So what else could we be expecting? If you're allowed to say, of course.
We got 2 tours out, Australian with Devil Wears Prada, Invent, Animate, and Throne, and we're hitting America in like a month or something. We're there really soon with Amure, Chamber, and Unity TX. All on sale now, new record, April 5th, Half Living Things. I think that's it. That's all I got.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much, and I will repeat that. Everybody, we are here with Alpha Wolf. Be sure to check out Half Living Things, April 5th. We will see you next time on Heavy New York.